back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is time for the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com. There's plenty ahead as we dive into the week that was and the week that is, and all the gang is here in the, I would just say this is the worst shape the studios have ever been in, as we hired real people to come in and work on things, and they tore shit up. And they built stuff back really fast, but there's been holes in walls, there's holes in the floor, there's all that will be fixed quickly, but we're moving up in the world. And I know I posted online, people are like, oh, I thought you were done with The Office. That's like, the technical stuff. This is just like the look stuff that we're doing now. So it all makes us better than you. That basically is what it means.
I'm just ready for the people that don't think that this is like an investment into a company that like just don't understand what's going on here. And that's okay. Some
like Tuscany Bob Stoops.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it is what it is. That's why they hide behind Twitter post or message board
Tuscany
posts.
Bob Stoops is the biggest loser on Twitter. He is my number one biggest loser on Twitter. I can't believe I don't have him muted and or blocked.
I haven't blocked. I don't have very many people blocked.
I don't
have
either.
To have the entire town of Anadarko blocked by the end of the day. But
yes.
God.
It is what it is.
I mean, look, you see a basketball game that is 4-2, and for those of you who don't know, Anadarko, Weatherford, who's a bigger school than them. So, I mean, I can see maybe how you place a little hijinks or whatever, but you don't have a shot clock in Oklahoma high school football. So they basically, I assume, ran the four corners the entire game. And like all four of their points came like in the last minute of the game or something like that.
No, it was 4-0 at one point in the third quarter, I think. But yeah, like if you don't know what we're talking about, Weatherford and Anadarko played a 4-2 game last night, and it's embarrassing to be somewhat a part of the state of Oklahoma. And have everybody else talking about how embarrassing that is for the sport of high school basketball. It doesn't teach anybody anything. Nobody's gonna, nobody's getting a bunch of money off of a Tuesday night win in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
I don't care if the guy.
Money get in here.
Well, I mean, everybody's talking about. Well, don't you want to win? Well, it's high school basketball. Like
I'd say it's more like, don't you want the kids to go out and enjoy themselves? Like, look, if they enjoy scoring 4 points and winning,
yeah, maybe
more
I'm wrong.
power to them.
Maybe there are a bunch of soft kids that enjoy that these days. But
well, look,
it's just sad.
As a resident Southwest Oklahoman, I will. And Josh, you know this very well. We'll bring Josh McQuiston in here. Who was Julian Wilson? Was that the running back from Anadarko back in the day?
Wilson.
Sheldon Wilson.
Julian Wilson was sophomore.
Went to NEO. And did he ever go past NEO?
No, he went to a lot of other places, but no.
So, I mean, he's a perfect example of a kid like, his grades weren't really good. You could tell, like, the school itself kind of rallied around him to kind of help him just get through high school. And then, of course, he had to go to NEO, so he didn't qualify. That was, back in the days when you actually had to qualify to go to a college. But, like, Josh, you kind of learned the lesson of, like, what Anadarko is about then. It's a lot of kids, a lot of Native American kids that don't come from the best backgrounds. I don't know. I don't want to get into, like, suicide rates and things like that, but that's something that Anadarko as a community has dealt with for a very long time. So I'm a little, I know Eddie, part of it is joking, but I don't want to get the Anadarko people all upset at me or you. Really, it doesn't need to happen. But like that is, Josh, that's just an area of the country that has a lot of people looking out for a lot of people that just don't come from anything.
I mean, that is a really heavy lead-in. I'll try to bring back a little.
I'm
sorry about you, Oklahoma City elites. All right, some of us grew up in the country.
It's not
and
even
know
about
how stuff happens.
It's not even about Anadarko. Weatherford's at fault too.
The people that are coming after you, you have to understand the context.
Them, I don't care.
The The problem
Then why are you so
is it
mad?
keeps
Why are you so
getting
mad? Why did you
presented-
come in here today talking about how everybody's coming after you on Twitter?
I just talked
you
about it for
you
4
obviously
hours.
do care.
I don't care. I
Yes,
think it's embarrassing.
it's evident that you don't care.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that we've gotten to the point in high school basketball that teams just stand there with the ball for
and it's terrible.
40
Nobody wants
minutes.
to watch that, but
No.
nobody's there to watch that except for for loved ones and parents and school people.
I just think it's terrible that if high school basketball is really for the kids to learn, go have fun, and do all that kind of stuff, that they're having coaches that are saying just go stand in the corner and we're going to try to win a game 2-0 or 4-2.
I haven't seen the film.
That's
I don't know
crazy to me.
how the Weatherford defense
They just stood there.
There's a silent
Weatherford's-
contract saying, "Okay, we're cool with
Weatherford-
it too."
yeah. So
Weatherford's
Weatherford
at
not
fault,
doubling
too.
people, like if they don't
Like-
go out and double people and force them to pass the ball, like were they complicit?
That's
Yes.
right. That's
it's
what I'm
it's
asking.
a problem as a whole. I'm not like these two just happen to be the
I don't think you know
Schools-
enough about it to make that generalization. It's a societal problem. You know, it's a bunch of soft people. Let's get you down to Anadarko and you can go to
No,
some practices
I don't want
and
to go down there.
and see what that place is all about.
I don't want to do that. I don't
Care,
care
like,
enough.
But that creates this whole other argument. You're not teaching those kids how to play basketball. You're teaching them how to stand around and dribble. There was a point, and I'm sure Eddie saw it in that Bunky Perkins video with the Benny Hill music in the background. There was a point where the point guard dribbled for 40 seconds between the half line and the top of the key.
Yeah.
Like,
And
that's not
Weatherford let him
basketball.
do it,
That's
though.
just standing
That's what I'm
around.
saying. That's
No,
what I'm saying.
I agree. I'm not saying it's just Anadarko. It's insane that there is not a shot clock of any like if you want to make it 40 seconds, okay, fine, whatever. Make something. Do something that forces these guys to actually play basketball.
That's, I think, what, like this, and hope maybe this is a breaking point, but they just had the vote a couple weeks ago with the OSSAA as far as if schools were going to be in favor of shot clock, and these smaller schools didn't want it. I understand that there is a monetary situation that, some school districts aren't going to be able to afford shot clocks. You don't see it happening at the 6A and the 5A level. But for, teams to show up to the state tournament and this happens, it happens every year, and then it becomes a huge deal. I just think that there's a way that we could avoid this, but nobody wants to make any changes.
Well, you have a lot of power. We have a lot of power. Should we go out there and raise money for smaller schools to be able to install shot clocks?
I guess so. I mean,
Do you care enough about that?
Not really, to be honest.
Well, then no.
You just want a good radio segment in the morning.
No, it's not even about nobody's listening in the morning. It's more about
You're
just
just
being
pissing off everyone today.
Well, nobody is. It's one. I mean, we don't have equipment that works in that station. It's one of those things that it's just embarrassing when I have to log on to Twitter and everybody's clowning on the state of Oklahoma because there was a game that was 4-2 last night. Enough's enough. It's embarrassing.
Shot clock. I mean, that's the thing. Shot clocks would help, but as you said, they had a chance to fix it. The small schools don't want it because they don't have the money for it.
Yeah, but then again, you have people like this clown coach at Anadarko, who's a Hall of Fame coach that's won 700 games, who's known for doing this and just stalling games and winning low-scoring games.
But does he just do it against better, teams that are in bigger classes that he knows they can't
well, I mean,
go
I
head
think
to head against?
Weatherford's in the same class.
Yeah, they're in the,
Anadarko and Weatherford in the same class
yeah,
now?
yeah. It was a district game,
Yeah.
I think. It's just and that's the other thing. This game had the playoffs are set. It had no bearing on who's going to play who in the playoffs or anything like that. They just went out and did it because that gave them the best opportunity to win the game, which, I've heard from a lot of high school basketball coaches this morning that said, do you not want to have a coach that gives you the best chance to win the game? Not like that. And I think nobody should let that sit well with them, that the best way to win a game is winning 4-0 or 4-2.
So are you mad at service academies for running triple option?
I mean, nobody takes them seriously.
until they go
And that's an offensive
go to overtime.
style, like-
OU.
But that's
is
it's a different that's different.
But it's not the same.
You're doing something that has a tangible plan.
Yeah, but you're also doing something because you can't compete doing the same thing that everybody else does.
I mean, I've said for a while maybe they should stop running the wishbone and stuff. I mean, nobody enjoys watching the Army-Navy game because it's a good football game. It's because of the pageantry of it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I agree. I don't tune in.
I mean, I watched the
'cause I can't wait to
Army-Navy
watch
game
that.
on the way home from meeting Josh up at the 6A games this year, and it was like, I wanted to gouge the only reason I was watching is because I had money on it.
Hold on. I mean, we're talking a football-centric audience here. I think most of our listeners love, not most, but a lot love, because when you watch Army-Navy, like, there are a lot of really cool things that happen in that game, just from a big play perspective or a momentum-swinging perspective.
It's awesome. I love the atmosphere that comes, but it's not good football.
It's not what people who watch the NFL are going to want to watch just for college football.
No.
It's like us.
You got to be a certain sicko.
It's like if you're flipping past the Patriot League on ESPNU, you're not watching that game in basketball. You're just not. All right.
And again, I know you want to get on. Last thing, like Navy and Army and Air Force are playing with offensive linemen that are 250 pounds against guys that are 330 from, Notre Dame or wherever. Anadarko's, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they don't have some limitations, but that's a school that won state championships in the last 15 years in football. Like, you can't tell me there's no athletes there. I don't believe that.
All right, it is time for, I appreciate that, Josh. It is time for our Enjoy Vision fresh perspective look ahead as Sooners getting ready in basketball. If you want to watch, if you care to watch, if you care, as Bob Przybilla would say, taking on Baylor and Kansas this week. You've got all kinds of drama surrounding Porter Moser and rumors about the Notre Dame opening. Softball gets underway. Number 1 Oklahoma opens their weekend in Irvine, California, February 9th through the 12th at the 2nd annual Mark Campbell Invitational. And Bob Przybilla finally covering a winner. He's covering the women's softball team this year. Also, kind of interesting, Tommy Rees puts the Jeff Lebby talk to bed. Alabama fans very much not happy with their coordinator hirings. And then chaos begins as Baseball Media Day is coming up this weekend. Who I know the man with the perfect vision, Eddie Radosevich, will be there. And Eddie, you are, we have a relationship with Enjoy. And it started with you because, you were the guy that went and got your LASIK from them.
That's right. I was somebody that required glasses since 3rd grade, and my life has dramatically changed here over the course of the last year.
You wouldn't
getting LASIK.
You wouldn't give up the rec specs.
I would. Well, and there was some benefits to that. Even with LASIK, I would still say that the fat, short, chubby kid that dives on loose balls when the team isn't stalling needs to, maybe be able to see, maybe be able to have vision, and you can do that at Enjoy right now. It's mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, exceptional patient care. My mom threw me or dropped me off at the Enjoy Vision and picked me back up, 4 hours or 3 hours later, basically. And the entire experience was completely professional, completely easy to take part of. So if you want to, even if you're interested in just getting a quote or a bid or whatever, you can hit up Enjoy today. Any unofficial 40 listener, $400 off LASIK with the promo code U40. So it's really, really easy. Enjoywithme.com. That is NJOY withme.com. Promo code U40, $400 off of LASIK over at Enjoy Vision. I couldn't say, much more about the group. It was always one of those things that I thought, I don't really like the idea of basically getting my eyeballs lasered.
Yeah.
Like there was a big hurdle that I had to get over, and it was painless, easy. It was something that I think everybody does, and it's kind of cliche, but it's completely true. I wish I would have done it, 5 years ago.
Now I had mine like 12 years ago. Do they still have you pop a little what is it, Vicodin before?
Yeah,
you,
that was my favorite part. I asked the doctor if I could get 2 of them, and they were legally only required or allowed, I guess, to give me 1. But that might have been my favorite part of the Enjoy experience. But no, I'm kidding. It was
now that you're so small, it probably affected you.
Waking up with perfect vision. It still is kind of crazy. Like I'll still every once in a while wake up in a daze and try to grab my glasses or something. It's like, oh yeah, I can see. I don't have to lay in bed blind anymore.
All right, now we're going to move on, and thanks to Enjoy Vision for being such a great part of the podcast. The Enjoy Vision look ahead, because the fresh perspective look ahead, because We've got plenty going on, or look behind, I should say. Look back. Let me start that over. The Enjoy Vision Fresh Perspective look back on last week, and I know Josh doesn't. Well, Josh, let's throw it to you. Anything that stood out to you last week on the recruiting trail? I mean, I know offers have been going out, but obviously, nationally, you had the Jaden Rashada stuff where he ends up at Arizona State, and more stuff starts coming out. I think it was Andy Staples and Stuart Mandel at The Athletic that kind of detailed some of the payments that were going to Rashada if he had signed with Florida. But outside of that, Oklahoma-related, anything that really stood out to you last week?
Nothing terribly Oklahoma-related, but again, like you said, a bunch of new offers. Coaches are on break, so it's kind of a quiet period. What I will say, just briefly, that I think is interesting is Miami had another player that is now asking out of his national letter of intent. And there's a lot of talk that Colorado was involved. And you're like, I wonder, like, is this going to become a thing? Like, is this some new aspect of recruiting that, because forever, guys like me, like once the NLI was signed, you kind of got to be done with that. But now, I mean, you've had this situation. Obviously, Jaden Rashada's was a little bit unique. And then, Cormani McClain was all but signed to Miami and then just kind of ended at the last second. So you just kind of wonder, like, is this some of the Dion effect that we've thought might happen at a major level and what that's going to do, to tie it to Oklahoma a little bit, as much as Oklahoma recruits in the state of Florida? Like, is this something they may have to deal with at some point down the road?
I think coaches are they're just so anxious for Colorado to start playing football because they want some of the mystique to wear off, and maybe that, if they're a very average team, and I'm sure there's a lot of Division I coaches that are like, I hope this fails, I hope this doesn't work because everybody's in trouble if it does.
It will force people to look at the way they do things. And I think there are parts of Dion that could be great.
Sure, yeah.
If people wanted to employ them. But I also think there is some gimmickry to it that is going to be, I don't think that's a word, but
we can make up that
it's going to force people to, or that may, I don't know, like, I'm very open to what's going to happen at Colorado. I will say, people thinking he's going to make them like 9-3 this year, look at those lines. It's going to be trouble.
Gimmickry is fine. Can we all agree that trickeration is the greatest sports word ever made up out of thin air?
Pretty good.
Was it made up?
Yeah, trickeration didn't exist. I don't know if Chris Berman invented it, but somebody on ESPN Sports Center invented it when I was a kid.
I guess I didn't realize.
But it would have been college where it would have come from.
Yeah.
Because not the pros.
Well, let's just roll with it.
Yeah, trickeration, greatest sports term ever invented.
That's fine with me.
Well, and I mean, it is interesting too because we haven't really talked about NIL stuff a lot recently, but you see all this stuff that's going on out there, and like you said, Miami and Ruiz, and you saw where the NCAA is coming out and saying that they can now punish schools based on hearsay almost.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
Like if they just feel like the news reports are valid enough, like they can punish the school, which I don't know how everybody just doesn't start making Alabama stories or Georgia stories up if that's the case. But I mean, like the NIL space, it's like we've talked a lot about it. We've done some of it in the past. We kind of let it shake out this last year. We've still planning things, talking to people about things. All that stuff is still out there. But, and I've said this from the beginning, I think this is all going to shift and change and morph as it goes along. And at this point, I'm almost to where I think schools should be somewhat involved because, like you look at Oklahoma, there's still two collectives out there. One's taking a bunch of money, but, other than some autographs before games, like there's not a lot of infrastructure there to kind of really kind of do the things that you have to do to pay these guys.
Would you say that it's gotten to the point, too, that I think that schools have started to realize this? Not to say that any schools were putting it aside by any means, but it's almost a time where they're going to want to get involved because if they don't, and they know that the NCAA is eventually going to get involved, whether that be in 5 years or 10 years, hopefully, sooner than that they want to have all their ducks in a row to be able to kind of move forth with it. You just can't.
Oh, sure, yeah. Everybody.
You
I
can't
mean,
keep
if
kicking
you're
the
smart,
can down the road.
Yeah, I mean, like Alabama's a really good example. Like they just made waves yesterday. They have a collective that Yay Bama, I think it's called. Is that what it's called? Yay Bama?
Yeah, I believe that's what the that's the one that they have officially come out
or is
and
it
said.
Bama? I can't even.
Whatever. That's the one that they've officially said, like, that's our collective.
Right.
Funnel all the money to this one.
Right.
This is
It's
what we're
one.
doing. Yes.
And, they made waves by yesterday going out and stealing Aaron Suttles, a longtime Alabama beat writer, and hiring him as a part of the collective. And so I would assume Bama's going to give him unprecedented access and all this stuff to be able to tell stories throughout the athletic department. And I think, like Alabama, I'm sure their school had a hand in that. Like they're not going to go out and hire Aaron Suttles without Alabama Sports Information Department or athletic director saying yes or no. That's not who we want representing, the storytelling for our university and our athletes. So, like that's what I'm talking about with infrastructure. It's like, okay, so you can do crowdfunding, but then who's gonna do media for these kids? Who's gonna do autograph sessions? Who's gonna do Instagram posts? Who's gonna sell marketing? Like, there's this whole ecosystem that you have to have with you. And I think universities look at what's going on with a lot of these collectives and saying they're just taking money and they don't really know what to do with it. We have to build a system, and I call it sustainable all the time. But that is something that I think universities are more focused at, like, how do we make this sustainable over time? How do we make this to where when we get a gift of $1 million, $2 million, like we have the people in place to make that, like we have to build this. We have to have the foundation. And then when the money comes in after we built it, it goes straight to the players.
It's going to get to a point where it's no longer just a vehicle for funneling money to players that you want to
Right.
get.
And that's all it's been so far.
Yeah, it has to be.
Right. And, I think that's why eventually...
But I think some of the boosters that are behind this prefer it to be that way.
Sure. And I think that there are some schools that are probably taking advantage of that right now.
Sure. I mean, if you're not, you're not playing the game right.
Right. But at the same time, if all of these administrators and everybody that's connected to college football and really, truly any college athletic sport, if they really do care about the sanctity of amateurism and all that kind of stuff...
They don't.
Well, and maybe that's what we should just start saying out loud more and more.
They just don't want, more than anything, they don't want athletes to become employees.
Right.
Yes, correct.
That's the
right.
biggest fear that they have. And guys like Josh, like the Florida thing shows you how out of whack and how quickly this can get when you start promising a kid that's barely a top 100 player in the country just because he's a quarterback $500,000 just for agreeing to an NIL deal.
Oh, I mean, that is, and what's crazy is, I had listened to some of Staples' pod, and he was talking about, there was an early report that Miami had, had offered him like a $9 million contract or something like that, and they couldn't ever find any substantiation of that. They couldn't find any documentation that said, yeah, that was agreed to or that happened. But clearly somebody at Florida believed it. So, like, that's one of those things where perception becomes reality. Like, and that, you think back to when Jimbo Fisher was so mad that, Sliced Bread had said there was a $30 million slush fund,
Sliced
basically.
Bread. Wow.
Yeah,
that's a pull.
You go back to that and, like, you think about that's why he was so mad about that, because whether it's true or whether it's not, you don't want that perception out there that we have to match up with that kind of money. We have to do these things, or if you're not getting, if you're a 30-man class, why aren't you getting your $1 million? So I think there is a lot of that. But what I think is interesting is you keep hearing more and more people talking, both publicly and privately, about turning this into a brand value conversation and letting guys, that go to Oklahoma, they're going to make more money than a guy that goes to Tulsa, or a guy that Tulsa is going to make more money than a guy that goes to, I don't know, South Dakota State or something, letting it be more about like this university and this football program is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which brings a lot more value to you than vice versa. Now, I don't know if that's sustainable because you've got guys that, your Adrian Petersons, your Cam Newtons, your truly special transcendent guys are going to be like, that's cool that I'm getting, that my second team guard is making a nice living, but I'm different, and I know that's hard to say in a team concept, but that's just the reality of it.
Well, and like you said, I mean, just buying players, these guys have to figure out that's not going to work. I mean, Ruiz is still spending money at Miami, but what did that money get him last year? It didn't get him anything. And then we don't have to bring up A&M. I mean, that's a school that seemingly is just saying, okay, he's a 5-star, give him a bunch of money. And I think we all know, Josh. I mean, we've all watched it. Like, just getting a bunch of 5-stars is a key to nothing except having talented players on your roster. Whether that translates to wins or not,
you get ahead of everybody else though if you can get those guys on campus, right?
Sure, yeah.
Then it's up to you to actually.
And for those 5-stars, for those schools that are playing that game, like, we're also kind of finding out nobody's going to live up to that deal if you aren't what you were supposed to be coming out of high school. Because you can break a contract pretty easily.
Well, and that's something that I think we've all talked about, hasn't it? Is, Josh, when this kid, he gets to campus and say, just hypothetically, if Jaden Rashada gets to Gainesville and never touches the field in, his first 2 years, what are you paying for it? Like, at some point, these people that are putting up the money, aren't they going to get a little pissed off?
Well, and what are you creating in the locker room? Jaden Rashada can't beat out Graham Mertz, but he's making $3 million. Like that, again, like, guys, we talk about this all the time. I know people think that all these collectives, like, they're just bottomless pits. They're not. They expect results, and if they're paying somebody that kind of money, A, they want to see him on the field, and B, if they don't, they're going to stop giving money to that collective or their own money directly. In the case of a guy like Ruiz.
What was it? The TCU collective? Didn't they just kind of shut down and say we're pausing operations? One of them.
Oh, I missed that. I think
somebody. I think it was a TCU collective. Like,
I'm really not sure.
But yeah, I just remember seeing that. But I mean, that's going to happen. You're going to see collectives that are like, yeah, we don't have any money anymore, so we're done.
Well, you see them folding, you see them merging into one.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's so interesting to me, guys, is that basically the contract not being signed between Rashada and Florida is the only reason Florida's not burning up in NCAA, litigation. Like, I'm like, are we really? We're just gonna play dumb that this wasn't this isn't the literal definition of a recruiting inducement. That's supposed to be the one thing you can't do with the NIL market. Like, it just blows my mind that, like, we just have to all pretend to be stupid.
Well, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that I find interesting is the NCAA. I mean, can they? I don't think they can, but, like, that's the problem you have with these NIL deals is, like, so if you're promising this kid all this money and then all of a sudden you just say, well, I'm sorry, we went belly up, or I'm sorry, we don't have the money, we can't live up to this contract, you'll have to sue us for the rest. How many kids are going to want to take the money that they've made so far, invest that into lawyers to file a lawsuit against somebody? I tell you guys this all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if you can win a legal battle or not. The goal for us all the time is just to not get in a legal battle. To spend the money to go win a legal battle is sometimes not even worth it. I mean, and these players are even worse position. They don't have a war chest of money to mount a legal challenge against the NIL that has, essentially millions and millions of dollars. So they can just walk away and say, tough luck, sue us.
At the end of the day, they're 18 and 19-year-old college kids. Why are we even, like, having to talk? Like, there is a level of,
it's affecting college
football. I know. And that's the kind of the dirty part about all of this is that, like, why should a freshman in college have to be worrying about this kind of stuff? But then again, we're also talking about millions and millions of dollars.
And my other part of that question is, why can't the NCAA come in and say, you violated an NIL contract, your collective did. Like, we're going to, decredit you, or, we're going to de-license them or something like somebody's got to hold these collectives to a standard.
Probably because at the end of the day, the NCAA has done nothing for so long. It's all spiraled out of control, and this is where this thing is at, is it not?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing.
I couldn't agree more.
Right. The thing that you brought up earlier, when schools want to have a plan in place, they want to have a system, They want to take it over. Like, ultimately, that's where this should be headed, because leaving it up to these kind of rogue agencies to just be out there doing what they want to do, they're going to screw people over. They don't care. They just want to win football games, and they'll throw their millions around to do it, and they'll screw people over if they don't live up to expectations. They don't have a personal relationship. They don't have. It's kind of like everything else. They don't have to be reliable. They're not putting their credibility on the line. They're already rich. So nobody's going to be like, you're a bad person. We're going to boycott your company. No, they're not. If a kid's a 5-star and he comes in and he's not any good, nobody's going to be mad at that collective for cutting him loose.
That's why the whole thing, guys, like the NCAA fought against all this for years. And then like a little kid, when it was finally clear that the groundswell was just not going to support them, they were like, fine, just do whatever. We don't care. Yep. And what they did is create all these fucking middlemen that now like just get to be in the middle of this. Like Jaden Rashada's not some terrible kid like out there with his hand out. Everything you read and like everything we've seen of the situation sounds like a kid that had a lot of people giving him really shitty advice and a lot of people with their hands in his pocket. And that's all this. So the NCAA not allowing like the schools to run this and let them have some sort of collective agreement. And like you're just creating middlemen everywhere. And and at some point it's a pattern, because almost everything tied to college sports, somehow a middleman, and you can call him a bag man or you can call him whatever you want to, ends up involved in this crap. And it's just not a coincidence. It doesn't keep happening just by happenstance. And like I can't understand why they can't see it and why they can't say, okay, we're going to let the schools or the conferences or some sort of collective idea of the conferences, we're going to let them hash this out. We don't have the ability to govern it or to say it, but we can at least say we're going to permit this to happen under our member schools.
Do you guys know one entity that you're never going to have to sue for not living up to their end of the bargain? It's PrimeShrimp.com. Prime shrimp.com. Just absolutely restaurant quality meals prepared in under 10 minutes. You can choose from a variety of styles. The New Orleans style barbecue shrimp is their newest. I know Josh can speak to that. They didn't send that to me. Garlic herb butter shrimp, the signature Cajun seasoned shrimp, the French quarter Alfredo, my favorite, lemon and cracked pepper, my second favorite. And you can just get unseasoned Simply shrimp and thaw that stuff out and throw it on the grill with your own seasonings. Throw your Tony Chachere's. Is that how it's said? You know, the Tony Chachere's?
I know what you're talking about.
Sachere's?
I believe Sachere's.
I thought it was Tony Charcuterie.
That is a board of meat and cheese. So yeah, go check them out, primeshrimp.com. And here's the thing. If you order 5 packs, and they're singles now, so it's no longer the double packs, which is going to let you try out more and more. Go online, primeshrimp.com, order 5 packs or more, and enter the promo code SoonerScoop, and you're going to get 25% off your entire order.
Got a text message a couple nights ago. A big Oklahoma State fan. One of my buddies in Oklahoma City. He's like, what's that shrimp company that you guys always advertise on the U40? Because he listens. He's an Oklahoma State fan. I said, that's Prime Shrimp.
Won't have to sue him.
He's like, what's that promo code? I was like, hey, bud, I got you.
Sooner Scoop is that promo code. So go put that in. Get 25% off your entire order. And your kids get dry ice to play with. Just don't let them eat it. All right. Moving on.
Or do.
I don't even know what happens if you eat dry ice.
Play with dry ice. Stand in 4-corner basketball. It's up to you.
Report back to us.
It's up to you. It's the youth of the country right now.
All right. There are some other interesting things that took place over the last week, which is Alabama hiring coordinators, and specifically an offensive coordinator, because that finally puts the Jeff Lebby stuff to rest. You know us. We've been telling you for a long time. We don't think there's anything to it. We think he's moved on. And basically, Alabama fans are, and since one guy is too young, the other guy, Kevin Steele, is too old, and Kevin Steele doesn't exactly have a great track record. What was the last D.C. job? It wasn't Florida State, was it? He was at Baylor when I was younger.
Kevin Steele?
Yeah.
Well, he was just last at Miami, right?
Yeah, he was. They
Okay.
hired him from Miami. He was Miami's defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. He was an active defensive coordinator. Okay, but he's been one of Saban's reclamation projects on the staff there for a long time. But the Tommy Rees deal, it really does show you. I mean, I'm sure Alabama fans were mad that they didn't jump on the Garrett Riley train. Clemson, as soon as that game was over, Clemson had that deal done. Jeff Lebby, obviously a guy that was out there, but it just goes to show you. Jeff is comfortable in Norman. He likes it here. He's going to make $1.9 million. And we said it all along. It doesn't make sense for him to make a lateral move because he's going to be a head coach if he has success at Oklahoma.
Well,
and knowing nothing, I want to say two things real fast. Jeff Lebby is not going to go to Notre Dame. I can't even fathom that fit. So let's just I don't know anything. I'm telling you that's not going to happen. And no OC in the country wants to go coach for Mario Cristobal right now. So I think we can say any rumors are even dumber than some of the Oklahoma stuff that was going.
I know that there's a lot of Oklahoma fans out there too that were on Twitter or message boards or wherever hoping that Jeff Lebby left.
Yep.
I think just some continuity going into the second year of Brent Venables, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Not only is Jeff Lebby excited about what they have coming back and kind of the future of the offense. It's just important that you're not having to go back to square one. And I know we'll get into the basketball stuff here in a little bit, but it's kind of in the same vein just as far as you don't want to have to keep pushing the reset button. And I think it's important that you have a bunch of guys that seem like they're in it for the quote-unquote long haul or however long he's going to be here until he gets a head coaching job. Stuff like that's important. I know that it's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but I do think that, there's nobody that is going to be more loyal to the program right now than somebody like a Jeff Lebby.
Do you think every podcast we just need to have kind of a pep talk with people like Dylan Gabriel's going to be your starting quarterback.
It's going to be okay.
Jeff Lebby's going to be your offensive coordinator.
Well,
Ted Roof is still on staff.
If we're going to do that, I think that's one of those lessons that some people they're going to always complain about. And I know that
you don't know what you're talking about.
Oklahoma
you're wrong.
was it the best offense in the country last year? No, it wasn't. But to sit around and act like they were just dog shit is also a little dramatic.
Right.
I'm hoping the off-season version of Dylan makes his way in the spring and into the season. I want to see that personality.
You want to see Orlando, Dylan Gabriel, like he was at Florida State, basically. He was free flowing. He seemed emotional.
Yes.
You could tell he was invested, and he's a pretty just casual. He's a Hawaiian kid. I mean, he's low key. He's chill. I mean, but you like seeing that fire.
Indeed, and I think the fans didn't feel like they had a connection with him.
It's amazing that Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, but even Jalen, as bad as he was in a press conference setting, and Eddie tried everything he could with him.
I never give him a hand job.
Noted.
Okay. Allegedly. No, but I mean,
I just say that because I think somebody did try to one time and it didn't work out. Obviously,
I think that was Baker.
I think it's with anybody that plays for OU.
Okay. Well, there's a couple candidates there. I don't know which ones. Anyway, no, but Jalen Hurts on the field, he was an emotional guy. Yes. He got people fired up. I mean, what was the tarmac speech that he gave after the Kansas State game or whatever? You just kind of want to see some of that fire with Dylan. And I could see last year, first year here, didn't know everybody on the team. But now he knows everyone. He's done the retreats now. He did that to kind of get closer to the guys, but whole new system, bigger fan base. And I think that's the thing. I think coming to Oklahoma, whether he wants to admit it or not, I think that was a little bit of a culture shock to him and being in a program like this.
And that was the only question for me, is whether he would come back or not. Did he like being in this environment, or did he like just doing his own thing and no one really cared?
So, yeah, I mean, but it's a good thing. Don't mess it up. It's a good thing that Jeff Lebby is back at Oklahoma. I don't know why I think we just kept talking about it because people kept putting it out there for clicks or whatever, but we never really thought it was a serious situation with Alabama. All right, outside of that, we have, sorry, Josh, but things are not going well with OU basketball right now. Ever since the Alabama game, they've been blown out by everybody, and it hasn't been close.
Hasn't even been close. Bedlam is a 10-point margin, but if you watch that game, you know full well that
they controlled it from beginning
20
to
25. That was not a 10-point game, and you knew after Bama was like, what's going to happen with this team? They're going to build off it, play with confidence, state their case for why they're going to be a tournament team.
Now it's Alabama just laid an incredible egg.
Now it's going to. We could, in the next 2-3 weeks, this is the most improbable result of the entire season, is that Bama went to Norman and just got destroyed by this team that hasn't won since and didn't win before.
They're just so uncompetitive.
Yes.
I think that's probably
the biggest
They're
concern.
so uncompetitive, so unathletic, which, I can handle losing. You can go through. They play in the strongest league in America. Like you do get a little bit of leeway there, right? Because they are playing night in and night out against the top 25 opponent usually. But roster construction wise,
right,
the way the game's being played, I think it's perfectly fine to sit and ask Bob, like, the longevity of Porter Moser and Norman. Like, can he coach at this level? Can he get it? Can he recruit guys to Norman at this level? And right now, it doesn't seem like that's the case.
He can recruit them out of high school, but he's got to be more aggressive in the portal. And I know he's had to fight it. He's like, man, if I could just get these guys in the living room, with an in-home visit with the parents, I know I can get them. But transfer portal's a different story. And instead of being like, man, it's hard, you just got to go all in, balls in, and go figure out how you're going to bring some of those guys to Norman, because that was the biggest obstacle throughout the course of the spring. Is all the guys, I'm not going to put their names out there, there's about 3 or 4 that I could mention, that were scared off by Tanner Groves. That sounds ridiculous when you see the way that this season has gone out, but they were like, man, Tanner's going to play 30 to 35 minutes. I'm not going to get a chance. There's no reason for me to even want to come to Norman. And that's not how Porter Moser and the staff presented the case, but that's how they viewed it, that Tanner was like the golden child and that they were going to just have mop-up duty and it wasn't going to be worth their time. Tanner won't, of course, be an issue for this offseason that will be coming up, but you have got to find a way to get plan A guys and not settle on plan C and try to convince yourself that this is going to work.
Well, and it's also probably, I don't think that Porter Moser and the staff could have predicted that Tanner Groves was going to take a step back from what he was a year ago, and last year wasn't very good.
Exactly. You went from like 11-6,
right?
I believe last year, and now he's not even averaging 10 points a game. He had 14, 12 boards, and 3 blocks against Bama. The game before it, the 2 games since, 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks combined. It's just not. It's not going to work if that's what he's bringing you. If he's your quote unquote like the heart and soul of your team, and that's what he's providing, no one can follow his lead because he's not leading.
Well, and it goes back to the decision even to bring in the Groves brothers at this point for why his tenure is so bad. I mean, It's not like they were at Loyola Chicago with him. They were at Eastern Washington, and they were. I think they were the first guys that he pretty much contacted when he got this job, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they were among the first, and like they saw a lot of other post guys without the Groves. They can come in and help us immediately. These are who we should go for. And there's been times it's looked like a really smart move, but it's just not consistent enough for what you need them to be, and that's because they couldn't get that other quality backup big. They kind of lucked out that Sam Godwin as a walk-on has turned out to be something, but you needed another piece. It was never there. Then Yaya Kite got hurt for the season. Like, he would not have done anything Saturday in terms of production, but he would have had some minutes as a big guy, maybe gotten a rebound or 2. Instead, you go Jalen Hill at center because Godwin and Groves are both in foul trouble, and that's not a recipe for success ever.
Well, the construction of the roster has just been it's been miserable. And whose fault is that? It's the head coach's fault.
Exactly.
Like that falls back on Porter Moser making a step from mid-major basketball to one of the premier conferences in the country. It just does.
And that goes to Joe Bamisile and his relationship with Emmanuel Dildy from the Northwestern days. They knew who he was before, and they brought him in, and they haven't let him be who he is. They've been so like, oh, he's not good as an on-ball defender. We know that. We get it. That's true. But what he brings in terms of his athletic ability and his ability to score, there probably isn't another person on that roster who can do that. And they're finally just letting him, be free and say, all right, we need a spark. Maybe you're the guy. They mentioned he loves the way that Porter mentioned yesterday when I asked that he likes the way that Joe has attacked practice the last 2 to 3 weeks. So they knew going to Morgantown that they were going to use him. I don't know if fans really buy that or if they just say, you know what, there's nothing else here, so let's go ahead and throw him out there and see what happens. He's going to get a lot of run tonight against Baylor. We'll see where that goes from there. But, you're going to have to live with the bad stuff he does because he brings so much good.
8 games left on the schedule. I think it's at the point you're 2-8 in the conference. You're not going to make a move into the NCAA tournament. You're not going to get hot. You're just not. Look at the schedule. I need to see something over the next 8 games that at least gives me hope for the future.
Exactly.
If that's playing Otegwa 30 minutes a game, so be it. If that's playing Benny Schroeder, so be it. You're also going to start getting into something that is uncomfortable in talking about retention of a roster that there's a lot of these guys that can come back. As you said, Tanner's the only one that's sure gone.
Yeah, the only one.
Jalen Hill can come back. CJ Nolan can come back. Do these guys want to come back and play for Porter Moser? And if you don't, then you got a real big problem because for the 3rd year in a row, you're rebuilding a roster that you've already shown. And it's uncomfortable too because the first year it was a shit situation. He got put in a really bad spot in trying to build that roster. Last year, it's been a failure. And if you're right back to where you were this past season, and by the way, you're going to have to go out and hire a assistant coach because that guy also didn't want to be a part of the program anymore. There's just some stuff that's building that I'm at the point, Bob, where it's I just don't know if this is working. It seems like an uncomfortable fit for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it's if it's one thing, okay. If it's fine. But it's every single obstacle keeps blocking the progress of where you want the program to be at this point. And, it's going to be because that roster is so young, basically. So many guys can come back. It's going to make every offseason just kind of crapshoot. You're going to have no idea who wants to come back. I think you'd have to look CJ Nolan when you begin the season as the starter, and now you're kind of just playing spot duty off the bench, and he's just kind of really chucking up threes whenever he gets in and not providing much more than that in the last couple of weeks. You sort of wonder where his head is at and where that thing is going. I think he's done a good job with the freshmen. I don't think the freshmen should be okay. I think Uzan has kind of hit the freshman wall a little bit, and that's because he had to play 25 to 30 minutes, to start conference play instead of, 15 to 20 and being eased into things. They relied on him so much. He needs to get a second wind here going down the stretch, but they just need some spark. If it's Otega, if it's Bamisile, get more athletic and see where it goes.
I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask it after I remind you guys that the temperatures have dropped, and we have entered prime sock season. Our friends over at Dead Soxy just announced their BOGO winter sale. That's buy one, get one. Right now, when you buy 2 sock bundles, you get the second bundle 50% off or get a free pair of socks with any single pair you purchase. That's right, a free pair of socks with any single pair that you purchase. To get the deal, just put any 2 bundles or any 2 pairs of socks in your cart and apply the code SCOOP. If you got bundles in there, it'll take 50% off the least expensive bundle. If you got 2 pairs of socks in your cart, it'll make the least expensive pair free. So head over to deadsoxy.com. That's DEADSOXY.com and stock up on this incredible winter sale. Just remember, use that promo code SCOOP, and it's the buy one, get one sale. And as always, stay Soxy. Okay, here's my question for you, Bob. Is the difference between this team being a tournament team and not the inexplicable loss of Elijah Harkless during the offseason?
No, it's more Mo Gibson because they thought Porter, you could tell. He's like, all right, I get it. EJ wants to go closer to home. That's going to make sense. But they didn't think they had to find anyone for Mo because Mo wasn't going anywhere, and he opened the floor so much. Even though there were games where Mo couldn't hit anything, but there were games, and he had one for DePaul against Xavier where he would hit 6 or 7 threes, and you're like, this is what he brings to the table. And that seemed like a gut punch, and they never really found another guy to go that next shooter. And we've seen they struggle shooting, and when they struggle shooting, it affects every other facet of their game, which Porter admitted to me last week. This is the year he's seen that the most. He's never seen that where if you don't make shots, it affects your rebounding and the way you pass and the way you defend. And that's happened more than with any other team he's ever coached with this year. And that's what it is. It's just a break or two the wrong direction every single time. Instead of getting the break, it went against their way.
I'm just looking it up right now. Basically, Mo Gibson averaging about the same he did at Oklahoma. A few more points a game.
Yeah, I mean...
At DePaul.
At DePaul?
Yeah.
Yep.
DePaul. The school in Chicago.
Yes.
DePaul.
Where my mom went. Yep.
Sorry, Bob. OU's losing kids to DePaul.
Well, they lost
starters.
Harkless to what?
UNLV.
UNLV.
UNLV
playing
with
for Kevin
Kruger.
I mean,
Lawrence
like
brother,
that one, it's almost like, yeah, it's like you said. I get it.
Well,
it's not great, but I get it.
But that was also Mo overestimating his worth. He thought he'd end up at Florida or Baylor. He really thought he was going to go home to Waco with Baylor. Then he thought he'd join Carlin Hartman in Florida, and that was his last option.
Yeah.
He had to be a Blue Demon. But so it's weird how it's worked out. And now with the Notre Dame rumors, I mean that's not going to go away, because if OU goes into the tank, it'll be like they'll go to Lincoln Riley and say, oh, he gave up on the team and because he was ready to leave. But then if OU makes a run, it's like, oh, he's making his value as much as possible so that Notre Dame has to work to try to get him. So none of that's going to go away unless the Irish make a move. We knew when Mike Bray announced that he was going to resign at the end of this, retire at the end of the season, Porter Moser's name was going to come up because of all the things that make all the dots you can connect. Well, now we're getting into the weeds of it to where is this actually going to happen, and is it actually affecting what's going on with this team?
Are we done? Are we done?
Are we done?
So, I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, Oklahoma, they're not in a position to buy him out and just fire him. I mean, they have to hope that he takes another job.
Yes. And it's
then
just weird.
That gets into the buyout situation.
It goes to the buyouts, and it goes back to his impassioned speech after the Bama game that was 10 days ago. That's all that was. And it feels like a lifetime.
But I got to think, if Notre Dame is a reality for him, he goes to Joe and he says, or Notre Dame goes to Joe and they say, we'd like to hire him. Can we do something about the buyout? And Joe probably doesn't say, well, it's not nothing, but it's probably much less than $9 million. And it goes down to 7 next year, right?
I've heard it's $9 million and it goes down to 6 on April 1.
That's what I heard.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So Final Four weekends, what? Into March, April 1.
Yeah, that one.
Like, that's usually when some of those moves are made. It just, again, like, do you want to get something done? Like,
the problem
their season's going to be over in a month.
Exactly. Then you're wasting a month of the calendar year just for $3 million.
I don't know how that stuff works. Could they go to the whoever and say, we know that we're not going to have to wait a month. Can we just get this done?
I mean, a contract, you can do whatever you want with it.
And then how does Notre Dame view things? That's my question.
Yeah, like if I'm a Notre Dame fan and again, this is where you kind of get into it's so interesting, because if I was on the outside looking in and Notre Dame, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, which I am because I'm Catholic, All City altar server, by the way, it's one of those things that
I don't know if that's a good thing.
First team?
I was never touched. It's one of those things that, like, I still think it would be a good hire. I think he can still coach. I just don't know if he can do it here.
Yeah, there would be a lot of Shaka Smart. They'd go, oh, you can work at Texas.
He's a great coach.
Yeah.
It's working out at Marquette.
Marquette, they're a top 15 team again. It's like sometimes the fit doesn't work.
I don't know this for a fact, but I think if you would ask Porter Moser and put a little Jim Traber truth serum in him.
Do we really have to do that on our pod?
If you seriously asked him if you thought, is this what you signed up for? There has to be nights where he walks into the Lloyd Noble Center and goes, what did I get myself into?
Absolutely.
He's got to get to the SEC. I just don't know if he's going to be able to. They get to the SEC, they're going to be a much more competitive basketball school.
It's been insinuated to me that I don't think Porter Moser really likes the idea of coaching in the SEC. So, I don't know.
Too many athletes in that league for this team.
They'd win a lot more. They took the best one down by 24.
Yeah,
but let's let them play. Yeah, exactly. I think 100. You take 100, Alabama might win 99.
Hey, if OU shoots 70% in the first half and makes 6 threes, they will play with a lot of people. And if things would have bounced right there for that 2.5 week period, I think that we'd be talking about this thing a lot differently. But because it is so ugly. And this is where we're at.
We're Baylor, Kansas, and then it's Kansas State, Texas. So that's the next 2 weeks.
Josh, you're welcome back to the pod now. I think we've got it. It's just it's maddening that every week we have to go through just airing of grievances for the basketball program.
I mean,
it's over now.
Guys, and again, we all know how rudimentary my knowledge is of all things going on with this basketball team, but wasn't Porter's big beef like the transfer portal and how chaotic that is and recruiting and the chaos that comes with that?
Yeah.
It stands to reason that he would hate the SEC because everything that's tough about all of those things, it's just on steroids in the SEC, even if it is basketball. I know it's a little different. It's not the same. And I realize that the product on the floor isn't as good. But, I mean, you think there's a lot of backroom deals in the Big 12. The SEC, Jim Bob does not give a shit about the NCAA's rules.
But they don't have to. Nobody has to. Anybody can do whatever they want.
Yep. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I feel like in some places in the country, there's still this we could, but it's kind of wrong. Whether it's morally or against the rules or whatever, the SEC is just double birds. They don't care. They don't care about any of it.
Yeah, but what it comes down to is you have more people willing to just throw money at things, and they do in the SEC. Yep. I mean, Ole Miss has
willfully and blindly.
And I would say OU's NIL movement is a little more structured compared to last offseason. Where I would love to actually ask Porter, how did you try to describe what you guys could offer when you had no idea, really?
Yeah. And I think that,
well, and so far, the only thing that's been announced is a full football player NIL program, not a basketball. We haven't had a basketball one announced yet.
I think, unfortunately for him, for Porter too, that when he's trying to put all this stuff together, there is very much a flux as far as what's going on with the OU football program after Lincoln Riley. This all comes back to this scumbag Lincoln Riley. Blame it all on him.
I'm fine with that. There is another team playing that is women's softball that should get everybody's spirits up. I know, Bob, you were at Patty Gasso's Media Day, and I think Jada Coleman was there.
Women's basketball was pretty badass on Tuesday night as well.
Great comeback from them. Jenny Bronchek's doing a great job. I mean, that there is life back in the OU women's basketball program for sure. We don't cover it, which we should. We will in the future. But let's go to softball and just kind of it seemed to me, I watched some of the Patty Gasso interview, and it's kind of like you would expect from any great coach. We're back at square one. What we did last year doesn't matter.
Have to be. Have to have that mindset.
Basically, yeah, we ruled everybody last year. That doesn't mean that's going to happen this year.
And they don't want it. That's why their schedule is so ambitious. They're looking to try to get more competitive, games. The run rules, she said it flat out, doesn't make our team better. So that wasn't the goal. Very happy with how the schedule has panned out, starting with the tournament this weekend, and a lot of ranked teams give you a good idea of where you stand, and a lot of, let's figure out who's in what position, where they need to be in the batting order, so that when Big 12 play comes around, we are ready to roll.
Is Jada Coleman unquestionably the star of this team, or does Grace Lyons have an opportunity to kind of become the
Tiara Jennings.
Or Tiara Jennings, yeah.
Tiara Jennings.
And that's actually right. That's what's fun about that team. You could go with 4 or 5 and not be wrong.
But if you put Tiara Jennings in the position to score all the runs, like they were batting Jocelyn, second all last year, for a reason. But, like, you put her third or fourth, I mean, she'll clean up.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have Jada leading the lineup, and then Tiara, and then it's just going to be, all right, it's time to have fun and see how it all going to shake out. And we mentioned...
And explain the pitching part to me, because, I mean, I think just casually, if you watch a team, like, you think, like, okay, Nicole May's going to make that jump this year. But there's new, transfers and things involved here.
Alex Storako from Michigan, 4-year pitcher at Michigan, that is going to come here and finish it off. And I think I was conditioned to it too. Like softball, you have one ace, and then you hope you have a couple people that are serviceable. And Patty's going at it. I want 4 quality pitchers, and I can just bring them in whenever I feel like it. Jordy Ball's completely healthy. She hasn't had any issues at all dating back to last spring and summer. And then she believes that Nicole May is going to have her best season yet. You're bringing Storako. Kirsten Deal was the number 1 pitcher for the 2022 class. So you're looking at a 4-person staff that can dominate any which way, so that you're done with the days of, like, Paige Parker's arm falling off. And that's what Patty referenced. Like, I couldn't believe I did that to Paige for those years. I'm never doing that again. I'm getting a real staff and having all the ladies understand, okay, I don't know if you want to be labeled an ace, but you're all part of something incredibly special, and we have all the confidence in the world in all 4 of you.
And you mentioned, like, not getting the innings last year. Like, when Jordy Ball got hurt toward the end of the year, like, that was a real problem. I mean, they had to have people step up, because Jordy Ball was the person that they relied on to get him out of everything. I mean, to close everything for him. And those other pitchers had to kind of figure it out as they went along through the tournament.
And that's why they're hoping for a lot more competitive regular season, just so you know who you can trust, and you earn, that confidence through the 2-1 win, or going to extra innings and having to pull it out and figure out a way on how to win, instead of just being simply better and run ruling day in, day out. And, I know I was one of them. I thought Nicole May might look to the portal, try to become a number 1 somewhere. I thought it said a lot about her character, the fact that she's sticking around. It's like, I'm going to be part of this one more time. I know what we got here. I know what I can do. And I mean, that, for as good as that staff is, that lineup might even be better. And this is when you talk about the transfer portal, Storako, Sydney Sanders from Arizona State gives you another loaded bat. I mean, this should be a lot of fun.
It's fairly reminiscent of, and Haley Lee as well, the catch from A&M. It's reminiscent of, I think what we always look at in college football with Alabama, and people that you just expect, they're going to lose all these guys to the transfer portal. And yeah, they do at some extent. The numbers probably more so because there's a lot more football players than softball players. But at the same time, it speaks to culture. It speaks to, everything that you would imagine when you're talking about a back-to-back defending national champion that, like, I know that we joke about it, but literally it's a shock when they go lose a game, not just lose in general.
Exactly. And it's been sort of a wake-up call for those transfers and that are so used to being the star at their school and maybe only focus on hitting. And that's one thing Patty has preached, and something that Jada Coleman and Grace Lyons both talked about Monday, is you got to be an all-around player to play here. You can't just, one specialty. That's not going to be enough. We know how to do all these. You need to bring everything to the table, and that's where Sydney Sanders is starting to learn, okay, what more can I bring to the table? And it's just going to be fun sort of watch how they ingratiate themselves into the team, what kind of, are they a big part of what's going on, and how they factor in. But you look on paper, this team should definitely contend for a national championship. I don't want to say they should win it, but really I think they should.
And to me, one of the intriguing parts about this season, just from a national perspective, is how local it is. I mean, their biggest competition, the people that are chasing them, Oklahoma State and Texas. I mean, people they had to go through last year to win it all. I mean, it's kind of like Georgia and Alabama a little bit. I mean, they've created these mini monsters that are coming after them. And so it's tougher than ever for them to stay on top of the hill.
It's crazy too that, and we have Nicole Mendez on to do like a Sooner review every Monday, and like she was talking about just like the culture of softball in the state of Oklahoma, and obviously we have the College World Series just right up the street, but there is such
Rogers
good
State. Yep.
small college
Yes.
softball, high school softball, travel ball softball. It used to be a thing where I think you basically had to travel out to California to get all these girls. And, Patty did that. But at the same time, I think that, it's only getting stronger and stronger here, kind of at the forefront. It's been kind of cool.
So it'll kick off. Well, it'll begin Thursday through Sunday, and this first month of the season clearly really not going to be in Norman too much, but we'll be at all the media times so we can talk with Patty and the players and just kind of get a feel of how things are going here during the first month.
I'll go to Palm Springs. I'll go cover.
I'll go to California tomorrow.
Irvine.
Let's give it. It's first year. Let's give it some time. We'll start planning for that in the future.
I think that I've been to Irvine, California. In fact, I ate in Irvine, California the night before meeting Bryce Youngquist at the Rivals.
Oh my God!
There's a poll.
Camp event.
And where is he now?
Probably still in Irvine.
Life's biggest question: Where is Bryce Youngquist
who
now?
Knows?
No one knows. Like, he came up again. I had people asking me at Under Armour back in December, like, whatever happened to that guy? And I'm like, literally, it's just a mystery. Like, he just fell into a black hole.
Okay, coming up this weekend, also more stick and ball. OU baseball is going to have their media day. What is the? I mean, we know the youngsters that were such a big part of things last year. And Nicholas and is the other outfielder. Why am I forgetting?
John Spikerman.
But the pitching staff obviously turning over quite a bit. Two really, really good pitchers. And I mean, what is the prospect on just the team in general?
Yeah, I think that everybody was a little concerned when these preseason top 25 teams come out and you don't see the defending runner-up a part of it. It makes sense, though. I mean, what they lost on the mound in their Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night starter, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon starters, is going to be a lot to make up for. And I think that when you look at what Skip's track record is, it's going to be kind of interesting. They went out and got a bunch of guys out of the JUCO ranks. They have a lot of live arms. We went out to the fall ball series and watched them not too long ago, and I think it's just going to be kind of a testing out process here early on. Cale Davis, the kid from Oklahoma State, it sounds like it's going to be in the starting rotation. It's going to take a while, I think, to kind of go through those doldrums of finding out when the lights come on. Is this kid just really, really good at the JUCO level, or is he going to be able to compete in one of the better conferences in the country Friday, Saturday, Sunday? So, I think,
and that'll be a big part of the early season is figuring out those Friday,
and I think it's the most important thing is don't overreact if some kid goes out and gets shelled, in the first 3 innings in a game in mid-March. It's gonna be a process. You're gonna have to be a little bit patient with it, but at the same time, offensively, I think they're gonna be pretty damn good. They feel like they're gonna be extremely good. Just 1 through 9 with guys that can truly, every one of them could run a little bit. And I think everybody saw what, kind of the chaos baseball type mentality did for this team a year ago, and getting guys on base and moving them around. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays here early in the season, especially at L. Mitchell, where, when that north wind is blowing, it plays a little different. You're going to have to use a little bit of small ball because you're not going to be able to use power to get the ball out of the infield. So,
who's my catcher this year? Who's replacing the?
It's going to be interesting. Easton Carmichael, Braden Carmichael's younger brother, is a freshman.
Okay.
Oh.
And then Diego Muniz caught a lot during the fall. So
I'm gonna have to see what kind of receivers we got this year.
That's going to be, and I think it kind of gets overlooked. Well, not overlooked, but just how freaking good Jimmy Crooks was as a defensive catcher. It wasn't just somebody that could rip a bunch of doubles. He was a very, very good,
really liked him,
defensive catcher. So
plus, I love a guy that does stuff without batting gloves.
Yeah, pretty hardcore,
old timey.
So it's going to be kind of interesting to see who ends up winning that battle. I know that there's a lot of people that are really excited about, the power that they brought in. Now I completely blanked on the kid's name. He hit the 2 grand slams in the. I've just completely blanked. Bryce Madron, God. He won, Triple Crown at JUCO, so it will be kind of interesting to see kind of how he, I guess, ingratiates himself to D1 baseball. I think it's going to be a smooth process, but we'll see. Tavion Bonds is a freshman. They're really high on the Rocco Garza-Gongora kid, if he can maybe slide in and play a little bit of first base this year. So it'll be fun. And then, usual suspects, like you said, Sebastian Orduno's back, Diego's back, Kendall Pettis is back, Spikerman, Nicholas. Like, there's Wallace Clark, who, surprisingly got left off of the preseason All Big 12 team. I think that's probably pissed him off a little bit. So they have a bunch of guys. James Hitt's another pitcher, left-handed guy from Texas Tech that's going to get an opportunity early. It's going to be kind of fun.
Have you seen Nicholas and Spikerman in person in the last couple of months at all?
Just at the fall ball stuff.
Curious, if they put on some good weight and stuff, because I could see those two really kind of making that confidence leap where they just start jacking it.
Yeah, I think with Nicholas, that's kind of going to be expected. Spikerman has a little bit of pop, but he's always going to be a guy that is just so extremely
He's more
fast.
That bat speed
I'm
guy.
not going to say I don't want him not hitting home runs, because you're always going to take that. But, just getting him on base is always going to be an added bonus.
I'm excited. I think a lot of people are excited about baseball, about softball, obviously. So it should be great. Spring football, coaches are on vacation right now, so it's a little bit quiet out there. We may have had a straggler come in the office from the football staff.
Anthony McKenzie, Patrick Enzlov, and Dakota Harris are 3 newcomers, too. McKenzie, a kid from Sam Houston that's going to probably play one of the corner bases. And Dakota Harris was a kid from Polk State College that won a Gold Glove at the division, whatever that is. I think it's JUCO level last year. So, all right, I'm done.
Got it in. So, we'll start previewing spring football and all that stuff. And, as the studios continue to get finished, you'll start seeing more content out of there. We got, some big stuff happening, stuff that we can't really talk about just yet, but some additions that we'll be discussing soon. So that's exciting. And Josh, anything that you wanted to hit on before we get out of here today?
No, it's a pretty quiet week in recruiting. The only thing I will say, and it's something you guys were there. I was just kind of hanging out yesterday, and somebody asked me a question during board chat, and I was kind of interested to hear your thoughts on this. So we've been about a year since Brent Venables' first class finished, and he talked a lot about, they weren't going to be about early offers, and they weren't going to be, kind of rushing to judgment. They weren't going to offer freshmen,
before they played varsity and all that stuff.
Yeah. And you look around, and and I'm not saying they've broken all those rules, but boy, they've bent them.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see, do you? I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, why would he have said that then and then behaved this way now? And I think some of it is a little bit of he'd been at Clemson where those rules were pretty well established. The kids kind of understood it. And Clemson was on top of the hill. So it was very easy to kind of live that lifestyle. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, is it just that? Or was that almost like a message to, the current recruiting class? I look back and I almost wonder if that was some branding kind of packaging, like this Oklahoma's important. We want you to treat it like it's important. Or that's just something he hasn't been able to implement yet. I kind of got into that thought. I don't know if it's that interesting, but I just kind of thought that was a interesting look back, about a year later.
I thought maybe that's what he wanted to do and realized that's not going to work. Like, I've got to offer these kids early because, I got to make sure we're in the conversation. When they're a junior, they need to be thinking about the Sooners and not, now I've offered, but they already had 30 schools come in before that, and they think I've disrespected them.
It could also be just the proximity effect. Like at Clemson, they had so many players in their backyard, they could afford to do that a little bit more than in Oklahoma, where if a kid's out in California, you got to start showing him love as a
gotta
sophomore.
know.
Because
they got to know.
Lincoln Riley's going to be out there doing it. I mean, Georgia's going to be out there doing it. Alabama's going to be doing it. Like, it's just, I just think it's one of those things like, yeah, it was good in theory, but in real world practice, it didn't make a lot of sense. And we didn't think it made sense when he said it at that press conference.
We had doubts that was going to be a possibility, like if that could work. And, guys, tell me, again, sorry, a couple of recruiting thoughts here, and I swear I'll let everybody go. I know everybody's got better stuff to be doing. This is the only
part that people will fast forward to, so we better take advantage of it.
So somebody asked me on the board chat, like, what are some things OU could do? And I want to be really clear. I think they've implemented a lot of really smart stuff, brought in more staff. They're doing things that make a lot of sense and are catching Oklahoma up in the recruiting space. What I would think is interesting, because, guys, I've talked about, like, you could do a 7-on-7 camp, or you could do like a Friday Night Lights that I've talked about for years, thinking that would be a really interesting idea. But something that I've never seen anybody else do, there's not really like an elite lineman camp out there. Like, and you've got a guy like Todd Bates who has all his NFL production. You got Bill Bedenbaugh who's got all his NFL production. Like, do you think that you could create like a camp like that? And you could even have the 7-on-7 stuff going on alongside it. And you almost brand Todd Bates and Bill Bedenbaugh as like it's their camp. Like, they're running it, these guys, and you make it like, I wonder, does that make it a bigger deal for these kids? Like when Todd Bates walks into their living room.
Would you make it a traveling camp? Like it's in Atlanta, it's in California, it's in Florida?
That would be like, I was thinking in Norman, but that's an interesting twist that I hadn't thought about.
Because
like,
I'm thinking about like the stuff like Lane Johnson does, that offensive lineman thing that Creed got started in, where they all go to, I think, Nashville, and they do the tight end thing in Nashville.
But then Brent said he didn't want to do any satellite camps.
Exactly.
But he also said he didn't want to offer a kid before he played varsity football.
No, they half-heartedly did that a couple of years, because that's where Ethan Downs got his offer. It was at the offensive line, defensive line camp. But it was more of just like a
one day. It was like the kicker camp.
Like whoever wants to show up, show up.
Specialist
it wasn't trying to bring in the best of the best. It was just, if you can make it, make it. And Downs was the best.
If you could go out to California, have Trent Williams come out. You could go, to Nashville or something and have, Lane Johnson and Creed Humphrey come out. I mean, like, that would be big time. I mean, that would be. I don't know how the NCAA views that stuff. Is the only thing.
That would be interesting, because like, you're not supposed to provide that sort of contact, but if Lane Johnson just happens to be working a camp, like,
well, you get a school in that area to sponsor the camp. I mean, if you go out to California, you get like Stanford or something. I mean, what school wouldn't, or Cal or whatever? What school wouldn't love to have those offensive linemen coming in to meet their coaches?
Yeah, I just like, we talk about branding a lot and like recruits and that kind of thing. Why wouldn't you brand your coaches? Like you make them like, because again, like, and I get like a guy that maybe doesn't have, the skins on the wall, or however you want to say that, but
they're not allowed.
No, you're not allowed. No, I'm sorry.
Is that a no? Is that a no? I'm terrible about that kind of stuff. The Bill Bedenbaugh, the Todd Bates, guys that have a lot of NFL success and track record, and these kids are gonna, like, you get to put, it gives you another excuse to put their resume up in front of the best players in the country at the positions they recruit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to leave us and get a job on the OU staff or not, but that's what it sounds like to me.
I just thought it was an interesting idea. I'm sure there's a million reasons why it's stupid, but I just thought it was interesting.
Tiffany, where does Tiffany want to move to? Where are you trying to get to?
Oh, no, Tiffany could stay here forever. It's me that somebody asked me on the board chat, like, what would you say? What would you summarize Houston with? And I was like, anywhere but here. That would be my summary of living.
I'm not
in
far off.
That's a great endorsement.
Well, that's why he lives completely on the other side of Houston, as far away as you can from
That's factual.
Woodlands.
Oh God, I am trying to fix that. I'm like, I could cut like an hour and a half, 2 hours out of my drive if I just lived on the other side of Houston. If I lived as far south or far north as I live south.
All right. No, it's an off-season pod, but we covered a lot of ground, a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully you guys will check in and tune in and follow our coverage of softball and baseball. And then spring football will be all hands on deck. And like I said, a lot of exciting things to come. By the way, I want to thank everybody who's been, especially the Isaiah Thomas stuff in the Soonerscoopstore.com. That's Soonerscoopstore.com. $10 hoodies, $5 T-shirts. We're clearing out the Isaiah Thomas collection. A lot of people have been buying those, and appreciate that. But, yeah, if you need a cheap hoodie for the kids or for yourself, you want something to work out in, $5 T-shirts, go check them out. And we appreciate your support. We've also got the Make Lindsay Street stuff, as well as fully stocked on the Unofficial 40 retro helmets and the Unofficial 40 wagon shirts as well.
I would imagine, too, Josh, moving forward here, in the next couple weeks, there will be a decision somewhat made for the Virginia linebacker, Nick Jackson. I know that you hit on him in Scoop last week.
He announced Sunday that he's leaving Virginia.
Oh, shit.
Like,
okay. I thought I'd missed something.
No, he announced that I'm not coming back. I know that was on the table.
All right, well, that's interesting.
Sunday he said he is not coming back.
Maybe it's OU and or
so he
LSU.
Was the guy that said that it was thought he felt too close to his teammates after everything that happened. He wanted to stay there. Now he's coming back.
Correct.
Now he's entering in the transfer portal again.
Right.
Well, he never left the portal.
Okay.
But now he's like, I'm not coming back. I am leaving.
There was maybe a thought there, I think, as of last week that, maybe was his draw to be with his teammates after everything that happened in Charlottesville. Maybe he thought about, thinking twice about maybe leaving, but it sounds like he will now is basically what it is. So, all right, well, that'll be interesting.
I keep hearing LSU and Iowa with him.
Iowa, really?
Iowa,
interesting.
Iowa some as well. Yep.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to go to a place that put the quota on their offensive coordinator? That's
my
the
God.
greatest
Can we do
contract
30
ever.
minutes just on Iowa? Like, I could talk about that forever.
I like. So
is there any doubt he'd already be fired if it wasn't?
Oh my
what his
God!
last name
I've
is?
never heard of a contract like that being redone during the offseason. Basically, it basically says we hate you, and if you don't do this, you're out on your ass. If you don't average 25 points a game, you're no longer going to be a coach here. Like
the best thing is they made Iowa clarify do defensive touchdowns down to the 25 point total.
They scored defensive touchdowns. They're good at that.
A ton, like an unbelievable amount of and and somebody was like, it's like I think it would make them 85th in the country in scoring offense if they hit that number. So 85th. And making a bowl, and we're like, we're good here. What are we doing? like you're acknowledging this is a joke.
Yeah, it's kind of like we can't just fire somebody, like especially the coach's son.
Well, because he's like people don't realize it. He's in a very similar Jimbo Fisher situation. Like they can't pay him out. Like he has way too big of a buyout right now. They can't do it. And so what are they going to do? Force him out? Like, I'm not firing my kid. Okay, fire me. Okay, cool. You owe me $40 million. Like, great.
Probably still, well, anyway. All right. So that's going to do it for us this week. We're going to be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast where softball will be underway. Will baseball have played a game then?
By next week?
By next week?
No, Friday.
No.
A week
Okay,
from Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have lots to talk about, some more football as we get closer to spring football as well. So appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you next week right back here on the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.